This week on Quality Digest Live, we take the pulse of global quality with Laurel Nelson-Rowe of the ASQ.
Plus, why does innovation thrive in cities? We'll examine some of the answers when we come back.
This week's sponsor of Quality Digest Live is Olympus, specializing in easy-to-use microimaging and metrology systems that provide the measurement and images you need to make crucial decisions.
Welcome back to Quality Digest Live for June 14th, 2013. QDL is your weekly look at who and what is making the news in the world of quality. I'm Dirk Ducharme, Editor-in-Chief of Quality Digest.
And I'm Quality Digest publisher Mike Richmond. Our first news item this week comes to us from Knowledge of Wharton, and it revolves around a question that every worker at some point, or many points, as the case may be, has wondered. Am I being paid fairly by my employer? The piece, Balancing the Pay Scale, Fair versus Unfair, recently appeared on Knowledge of Wharton's superb website. We get a lot of really good content from Knowledge of Wharton. Yep. And if you haven't checked it out, check it out. It's a really interesting site with some great content. Actually, now there are two factors at play here in this piece, and they contradict and complement each other in nearly equal amounts: fairness and market forces. Fairness essentially means that you pay people the same for the same work. However, that can be greatly affected by supply and demand issues within the job market. In a down economy, for instance, there are lots of applicants for open positions, and naturally employers are then able to pay less. Compounding this is the fact that it's a lot harder to cut someone's pay once they're on board, rather than simply reduce entry-level pay for a similar job that becomes available in the organization. So what that means is somebody who would come in, maybe in a down market, would start at less money than somebody who started maybe a couple of years before. So there's a disparity right from the get-go in salary. So people comparing themselves to each other, if they know what each other is making, there's a lot of problems sometimes with that. It leads to these problems that Knowledge of Wharton is discussing. Now, at the other end of the spectrum, applicants with special skills and or those who hit the job market at times when there are, at least relatively speaking, more jobs and fewer applicants, can demand and often receive higher pay walking into the company. Now, all of this, everything we just discussed, creates a disconnect in pay scales, and the sense of unfairness can thereby grow. There are big issues here for employers as well. In a sense, it's beneficial for organizations to pay workers as little as possible, but that can backfire in any number of ways. First and foremost, you get what you pay for, right? Undercompensated workers are less invested in their jobs, and that manifests itself in several ways: greater turnover, less innovation, more shirking. And even outright criminality from employees who feel that the company owes them something, so they might steal. They might filter from the company. Now, there's no easy answers here, and Knowledge of Wharton doesn't propose any. However, it's a topic well worth discussing and an article well worth reading. So check it out. To access it and all the pieces that Dirk and I are going to be covering on today's show, just click on the story links right below the video player screen, right down there.
That's right. Shirking. That's a word that doesn't get used enough.
Shirking is such a... It's like shirting, except with a K.
It's like onomatopoeia, right? The word means what it sounds like. It's like, you're a shirker.
Well, you're a Dirker. Dirk and shirk, right?
There was a limerick. There once was a man named Dirk whose work he did like to shirk.
Oh, you're onto something there, man.
I'm telling you.
You got to write that up.
On the fly.
Look for the QDD upcoming very soon.
All right. Hey, what's in your garage? Well, we know what was in the garages of Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and Steve Wozniak and Dave Hewlett and Bill Packard. It was the beginnings of some of the world's largest electronics and computer companies. All those companies literally started in these people's garages. Matter of fact, you may have even seen, if you look at old pictures of Hewlett and Packard, it really is in their garage with a bunch of electronic equipment. Well, just think what we could do if we had business incubators in 100,000 garages. Well, according to Stacy Jarrett Wagner in the article, What's in Your Garage? That's the idea behind 100K Garages, a website that directs garage shop inventors to designers and fabricators around the country that can bring their ideas to life. It's a free resource that encourages ground-level entrepreneurs or anyone who wishes to make something customized to get the help they need to make their dreams a reality. 100K Garages was created to support the digital fabrication movement, something that we actually cover here a lot. We're talking, 3D printing, that sort of thing.
Additive manufacturing.
100K Garages, digital fabricators work with inventors using 2D or 3D digital fabrication to cut, machine, drill, sculpt, or print. If your idea needs design help, 100K Garages finds designers to help you, along with those fabbers who will manufacture your idea. All you need to do is go to the website and post your project. From there, fabbers can bid on it. So it's pretty cool. For more information on this, follow the story link below the player page. So this is another thing where we're talking about how 3D technology, 3D printing, that sort of thing, is really moving into the mainstream. So essentially what they're doing right here is they're saying, look, there's a lot of people who do 2D and 3D designs of their projects, because almost everybody designs on CAD now. Sure. And now they don't have to worry about the high cost of perhaps taking this to a machine shop and having it prototyped, that sort of stuff. 3D printing is so much cheaper. So what you're going to see is you're going to see inventors who are able to kind of design their project at home, which basically is free on CAD design, and now send it out for bid for perhaps a 3D printing job. Now they can actualize their project, test them out, see if they work, that sort of thing. So really, I think you're going to see a lot more innovation coming up, particularly again in the world of 3D printing.
Well, it's amazing because what 3D printing has done is everybody knows what it does for the actual manufacturing itself, the ease that it brings to that, but it's not often considered how much it eases the design element of it, because you don't have that extra step, or the extra step after that is so much easier.
Well, if you've ever watched, there's been a couple reality TV shows that had to do with inventors, right? And you'll always see they always struggle with this part is they design it, they kind of, jerry-rig something up together at home. Now they need to make a prototype, and the prototype, they'll spend $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 on making a prototype, which a lot of people can't do. 3D printing actually drives that cost down for the prototype. So it's pretty interesting.
Cool stuff. All right. Good to hear that. All right. Wrapping up the news this week, have you ever wondered what the U.S. Patent Office does with the fees it collects from would-be inventors?
Speaking of inventors.
Right. No, you haven't? Well, me neither. However, fortunately, regular QDD contributor Michael Causey has turned his considerable powers of investigation toward this very question, and its conclusion is illuminating. The money is being stolen. I repeat, the money is being stolen. Now, no one uses the word stolen, of course. Euphemism. Diverted is the euphemism du jour in this case. But hey, if it quacks like a duck.
It's stolen.
The money's been stolen. Although the U.S. Patent Office is, in theory, a self-funded agency, according to information presented by Causey, over the last 2 decades, approximately $1 billion in patent application fees were diverted by the Federal Office of Management and Budget into a fund used for general government spending, for whatever that means. As a result, patents are languishing. There are currently more than 600,000 unexamined patent applications, and the average pendency time for a new patent is now a whopping 31 months. Patents are pending for 31 months on average. It's really incredible. The chilling effects of this on innovation in this country is clear, but help is on the way from an unlikely source. Congress. That's right.
The same people.
Wait for it. Congress. Talk about the foxes guarding the hen house. Or maybe a better analogy in this case would be the inmates running the asylum. In any case, Senator Tom Coburn, a Republican from Oklahoma, is proposing that a lockbox be created wherein patent application fees must be used by the Patent Office itself to run its day-to-day operations. Makes sense. Which is precisely why, in this reporter's opinion, it will never happen. We shall see. The government. It's always there. When you want to tell some jokes, the government's like.
If you've heard, have you ever heard any interviews for people like at the patent office and stuff on talk shows and stuff?
No.
They've had the head of the patent office, whoever that is right now. They're just like pulling their hair. It's like there's no way. They said it'll be 50 years before we get around to getting these patents off the books.
The ones that are here, much less the ones that are coming in every day, right? I mean, and $1 billion, like the old saying, $1 billion, after $1 billion here and there, pretty sure you're talking about real money. But it's a lot of money. I mean, and it's been diverted to these other funds. Let's be honest. I mean, the government diverted it for good cause. I mean, they diverted it to things that we needed, I'm sure, maybe. But nevertheless, the result is the Patent Office is not getting the support it needs financially, and patents are not getting processed. So
that's right.
Interesting story.
Okay. Last year, the American Society for Quality, the ASQ, embarked on a global study to create a baseline of fundamental quality, to understand continuous improvement practices around the world and provide a comparative guide for businesses to improve overall organizational performance. The first release of the research, Discoveries 2013, uncovered some very surprising findings. And here to tell us a bit about the survey and some of those discoveries is Laurel Nelson-Rowe, Managing Director of the ASQ. Good morning, Laurel.
Good morning.
How are you doing this morning?
I'm great. How are you?
Oh, not too bad. Hey, first, just give us a really quick overview of what the survey was, just to kind of bring our viewers up to speed here.
Sure. We enacted this survey because there basically was not a global study of quality practices, disciplines, resources, training, etc. It just didn't exist. And so there was a gap, as we say, in the quality world to fill. Many of these research studies are national in scope, but there wasn't the overarching multi-nation status report on where we were now and where we could go with quality practices, processes, and disciplines.
And how many respondents were there to the survey? And was it worldwide? Were pretty much all countries represented, or what was the makeup there?
Yes, actually, those are some of the surprises. We had aimed to create the survey for 15 nations, 16 nations, which represent the 80% of the global GDP. We actually had 22 nations in the initial analysis, the Discoveries 2013. We also aimed for about 2,400 responses, and we have that. The initial analysis is on 2,000 respondees, and these are leaders, senior leaders of quality in their organizations. And again, this is an organization study, a company study, so it is very, very comprehensive. We aimed for companies of $1 billion in revenue and above, and we got a very diverse set. We got plenty of those $1 billion and above companies, but we also have companies that achieve less than $100 million in their revenue. So that's another opportunity for future studies. In other words, small business quality.
You mentioned that there were some surprising things that turned up. What was probably the most surprising result or surprising data that you turned up?
In terms of surprising, we saw that quality training and competencies aren't as standardized across manufacturing and services. This initial cut of the data is looking at the two big buckets of manufacturing and services. So the use of competencies, functional competencies, the use of training above and beyond ISO is not as pervasive. So our quality professionals and quality practitioners have needs of skills and tools training. We've also had a number of responses or uses of the data. So some organizations are already using the data to gauge how much they're spending per person on training and skill development. Some are saying, well, we don't incentivize our executives or teams to achieve quality performance and continuous improvement results. Should we do that? Many organizations are looking at the data for that. So I guess part of the most surprising thing is we actually accomplished the research with a good result, and it's in strong demand. We thought it would be, but now it definitely is coming to be.
Did there seem to be a common, I guess, theme is what I would think about, something that maybe tied the results all together in some way, something that kind of ran through the whole survey?
Yes, we've actually we've organized the research into 4 themes, overarching themes. And I might turn around the question and ask, are you often asked, what's the best quality infrastructure? What's the best structure for a quality organization? Now that quality is everyone's job, do we still need a department? Well, there are many centralized departments. So one of our themes is quality governance and management, how you do that. The second theme is outcomes and measurement. So again, we at ASQ are asked, and I'm sure you're asked, what's the best measurement system? What's the best approach to scorecarding? And how do you deliver and report those outcomes? Is it organization-wide? Is it to senior leaders? Is it only to the teams? Is it siloed? So that's our second theme. Our third theme is competencies and training. I've talked about that a little bit, to see how pervasive training of all sorts, from ISO to auditing to Six Sigma to the full systems model, such as Baldrige. And our fourth theme, and this is a very hot topic at ASQ, is what is the culture of quality? What does it mean? What is it when you're an organization that is multinational in scope? What must you have in your culture of quality?
Well, that's great, Laurel. I want to jump in here because that kind of leads to the next question is, in your perspective, in its entirety in the survey, what do you think the data tells us about the current state of quality and where quality is going as a culture for these organizations that responded? What are they thinking about in terms of improving their quality and having that culture as part of their quality conversations going forward?
I would say that the research, well, we've created the baseline. We intend to do this type of research about 3 years from now, and then we hope to see the needle have moved. What we did see is fair sophistication of some tools and technologies in some large-scale organization, but what we have is a great deal of opportunity. We all know that the opportunities for improvement are tremendous. The state of quality is strong, but in need of a more pervasive approach. More resources. I'm sure everyone would say they could use more resources, more tools, training. Many organizations want to have that culture of quality from the ground up for every employee and from the top down. So senior leadership, executive leadership, the voice of quality is very, very important.
And Laurel, if people want to access this report, where would they go?
Okay, the Discoveries 2013 report is downloadable through the globalstateofquality.org. That's globalstateofquality.org website. There's many different tools in addition to the report itself. We're certainly rolling the research out through presentations and dialogues around the world. And this is just the first of 3 reports. The next report, Analysis and Trends, will be available in July. And the third report, which really takes the loop back of everything that we've learned with dialogues and the rollout of the research, that third report will be produced in November. And we'll actually have about 8 different spotlight reports, either region or topic specific, that will be released beginning July through November of this year. Pretty comprehensive approach.
Do you have to be an ASQ member to get this report, or can anybody get it?
Discoveries 2013 is available to members as well as non-members, free.
Okay.
The next reports will continue to be available to members and free of charge, but we really are seeing that the comprehensive approach, all of the 3 reports, would be of value not only to corporations for benchmarking that are not members of ASQ, so of course we'd love more members, but we also would see that it would be of value to governments and non-governmental agencies to see where they are in the state of quality.
Okay. Well, Laurel Nelson-Rowe, ASQ Managing Director, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Love your show.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so long.
Thanks, Laurel. Hey, good stuff there. Something to look forward to. As she mentioned, a couple of more pieces of that information coming out here in the summer and in the fall as well. ASQ always does a good job of really keeping their finger on the pulse of quality professionals, manufacturers, and service organizations out there.
So, and I believe we have a link. If you follow the story link underneath our player page, go to the story. I believe the link to the globalstateofquality.com is there, but that's, if it's not, it's just globalstateofquality.com. .org,
I believe. Yes, I believe it's .org. So check that out. Yeah, good information there from the ASQ. All right, thanks. Thank you, Dirk. And I have a feature article, Dirk, this week that I wanted to cover that I found very interesting, and it's from MIT News. And MIT News, kind of like Knowledge of Wharton, is one that we go to a lot and get a lot of great information from. The name of the article was "Why Innovation Thrives in Cities," and it appeared in Wednesday's issue of Quality Digest Daily. Again, it's from MIT News. This article really begins, and it cites some 2010 research in the journal Nature, which states that doubling population increases a city's, this is looking at cities again, increases a city's economic productivity by far more than double, by far more than twice as much. So, in other words, you increase the population by 100%, and what this research indicates is that you increase the city's economic productivity by 130%. So a lot more productivity than what a simple geometric increase in the population would necessarily indicate.
It's kind of almost an economies of scale thing that we see in just a single plant or shop or organization.
It is, and we're going to get to that because there's a lot of interesting analogies and overlaps here between how cities deal with this issue and how individual organizations will deal with the same issue, and we're going to see that in a moment. So why is this? Why did Nature and MIT News call us out, and what are they really looking at here? Well, more face-to-face interactions spur greater exchanges of ideas with different people. This is an example of the principle of superlinear scaling, is what was referred to in the article. Superlinear scaling. Now, superlinear scaling doesn't apply, though, in all instances. And there was an interesting call out here and an interesting comparison between the cities of Zurich and Beijing in the article. And the point here is that superlinear scaling of this kind doesn't really work as well, or doesn't really work at all, in poorer third world nations, right? In cities in these poorer areas. In Latin America too, not just Asia, but it's certainly in the third world. And the primary reason for this is transportation. Because when you think about a big city, big cities are all different. I mean, some big cities are big cities.
Right.
Some of them are collections of small villages.
Right.
And especially in the third world, many times what you have in a big city of 20 million people is you have hundreds of little villages. And because transportation maybe isn't that great, people don't circulate. They don't really get to have the interactions with all the different people that you need to really achieve the superlinear scaling that they're talking about here to increase the productivity. Because what they're saying here is that the act of a face-to-face interaction with somebody and the act of meeting somebody that you didn't expect to meet, having a conversation on the street corner at a bakery, whatever it may be, will lead to something, will lead to a thought, to look at something in a different way that you maybe didn't consider before. The example that they use to kind of compare to Beijing is Zurich. The city of Zurich in Europe, one of the greatest cities in Europe, and certainly one of the most forward-thinking cities in Europe. And Zurich saw a decade or two ago their population was booming, was increasing. It's great quality of life in Zurich.
Yeah.
So people want to live in Zurich. What they did is they invested heavily. They already had a great transportation system, public transportation. They invested even more heavily in that public transportation system because they realized that they would need that to accommodate all these people and to have these interactions that they needed. So Zurich, I've never been there. I'd love to go to Zurich. But if you go to Zurich today, apparently what you find is that there's like nobody in the city at night. Everybody lives outside the city proper, and they all go into the city during the day to work, and then they come out. And apparently, from the research indicated in this story, it takes 15 minutes to get to anywhere in Zurich.
Oh, wow.
From anywhere around the city, because the public transportation system is so good. I guess there's not a lot of driving probably. People are just using the public transportation. It's great. And that really drives superlinear scaling, as opposed to, again, these third world cities that are huge that maybe don't have that. So transportation, again, is as a key part of this. There's a couple things that this brought to me. There's a couple things that this idea brought to me. First of all, it's this trend away from telecommuting, and we've seen it with Yahoo, we've seen it with Best Buy and others, where they're bringing their people back in, and they're saying that they're finding that there's more value to having those face-to-face interactions, right? For this very same reason, because whether it's a city or an organization, you want to have those things. You want to have your people have different ideas, be exposed to different people, and be more productive, and this helps drive that. The other thing I thought of when I read this was the idea of is this lean? Is this a lean system or not? Because it's kind of not very quantifiable. I mean, yeah, sure, we have 100% versus 130%. We know that, but we really don't know why or how it works. And if I was a proponent of telecommuting and I was going to fight against a Best Buy or Yahoo and say, well, you got to prove to me that this works. I don't know that Yahoo or Best Buy could really prove it very easily. The data's not really there, or at least I haven't seen it. And if anyone out there has it, please email it to us at techno-live at QDLquality.live. Yeah, either one, they work just fine. And let us know, because I don't think there's really the data that supports it. I don't know that there is, I don't know that there isn't, but I haven't seen it if there is. So, you know, it's a really interesting thing that you would have more productivity through having these exchanges. It makes sense, but can you measure it? Does telecommuting work as well? Does video conferencing work as well?
Right.
But what percentage is it better not?
You mean as opposed to
actually being face to face? Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you telecommute. You know, I mean, it's effective. It works for us.
Yeah, not really.
Well, but it does.
It's okay.
It does. It works.
It works.
Yeah. But you find that you get more out of it.
It works better if I'm here.
If you're here, the face-to-face.
The face-to-face, yeah.
You know, so that's what the story's all about, and it's a good one. Again, by MIT News, and we get a lot of great content from them.
Yeah,
so
I mean, just to touch on that real quick. I mean, you mentioned like individual villages within a city.
Yeah.
In a way, that's comparable to what we're constantly talking about trying to fight within an organization, which is silos.
Yes.
A silo is the same idea. And you're always trying to say, look, you're trying to break down the silos, you're trying to get the information flowing between the silos. That's really what you're talking about. A big city that's really made up of a bunch of small communities that are disconnected. Sure. Same problem.
You know, and it's a good point, because, you know, if you do telecommute, and you're going to connect with people, you're going to mostly connect with people that you're working directly with. You may not have an exchange over the coffee maker just with a sales guy or whatever. So that's a fair point. I mean, it's a really good thing to think about, and I think we think about it all the time. Yep. But you know, check out the article and give it some thought yourself.
Okay.
Good. Well, thanks. All right. Well, that's our show. But before we go, I'd like to offer our thanks to this week's sponsor, Olympus America. Discover another dimension in microimaging and metrology with test, measurement, inspection, and imaging instruments designed for high-precision quality control and R&D. Olympus engineered solutions enhance quality and productivity in industrial markets around the world. For more information, visit online at www.olympus-ims.com or click on the banner ad just below or just to the right of our video player.
And you know, don't leave just yet. Before we go, we want to wrap up our show with Mike Micklewright, and Mike Micklewright will ponder about lean.
As he always does.
As he always does. See you next week.
See ya. Have a good weekend.
Did you ever wonder why copying is not allowed in school, and yet it's so acceptable in the workplace? In the workplace, we call it benchmarking, and it's got a nice ring to it, doesn't it? It does conjure up images of a boy taking out his penknife and carving into a picnic bench the inscription, "Jordan Hart Caitlin," to Caitlin's delight. Benchmarking provides us with a nice, gentle image and feeling about a process that is perfectly acceptable. Copying sounds vulgar. All of my kids have admitted to copying in school. Apparently, it's an accepted practice in school, but not condoned by the school itself. Also, it seems to be apparent that what is important in school is the grade itself and not the knowledge. But I digress. So, as a parent of high morals, I have reprimanded my children and told them that instead of referring to their actions as copying, they now need to refer to them as benchmarking. And then I give them further fatherly advice and suggest that they only benchmark from the best in class. If it's okay in the corporate world, it's got to be okay in education. Hell, even the teachers cheat. But that's another digression. This is what is done in the business world, after all, is it not? Many organizations are presently copying the lean tools of the best-in-class company Toyota. And many companies copy these tools without understanding or having the knowledge of the theory behind what makes the Toyota production system actually work. They may achieve some short-term benefits, but will never gain long-term benefits and sustainability of their gains without understanding the principles and culture behind Toyota's success. These are the root causes of their success. They will never achieve long-term success without understanding that management and leadership primarily needs to change. Like our children in school, they may achieve a good grade in their performance review one day, but the company will not benefit from the knowledge that could have been gained. There are other types of copying in the corporate world that are also perfectly acceptable and have nice sounding names like reverse engineering, in which you tear apart another company's product and try to copy it or reverse engineer it. One way or the other, it's still copying. Don't these companies realize that by encouraging copying, they are only playing catch up to a superior organization or person? I wish people knew that proper benchmarking was much deeper than copying and that it should be used only to gain knowledge. Otherwise, I wish it only meant carving Jason Hart Caitlin on a picnic bench. I'm Mike Mickelwright, the Wise Guy.